I have a statement that I would like to make to you today. Many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. And somebody may say, what are you talking about? Well, as I was reading over in Matthew 22, Jesus was explaining a parable of the wedding feast. And the way that Jesus was explaining the parable, he was bringing the wedding feast in to let us understand the illustration of how things will work in heaven. See, I'm going to read it to you. And as I'm reading it over, I want you to realize how the Lord is combining the wedding feast to how it will be to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And I want you to always think about your lives. I'm going to read it, and then when you get a chance, of course, you go back over it and read it all for yourself. And I'm going to start with Matthew 22, and it's going to start with verse number 2, okay? The kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a king who prepared a great wedding feast for his son. And we can look at that king to be King Jesus, okay? And in the parable, the son can be us, as we're called to be we're called as his sons and daughters. So I want you to put yourself up in the way, and I want you to think about it. Verse 3. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servants to notify those who was invited, but they all refused to come. Jesus sending out an invitation, but they refused to come. So he sent other servants to tell them, the feast has been prepared, the bulls and fat cattle have been killed, and everything is ready. Come to the banquet. But the guests had ignored them and went their own way. One to his farm, another to his business. You know, we always have an excuse. We always got something to do. The Lord sent out the invitation, but we always got an excuse. But I got to go do this, but I got to go do that. Verse 6. Others seized his messengers and assaulted them and killed them. Verse 7. The king was furious. And he sent out his army to destroy the murderers and burn their town. Verse number 8. Pay attention. Verse number 8. I'm going to do verse 8 through 14, and I want you to pay attention. And he said to his servants, the wedding feast is ready, and the guests I invited aren't worthy of the honor. They aren't worthy. Now go out to the street corners and invite everyone you see. So the servants brought in everyone they could find, good and bad alike. Okay? Good and bad alike. And the banquet hall was filled with guests. Verse 11. But when the king came in to meet the guests, he noticed a man who wasn't wearing the proper clothes for a wedding. Verse 12. Friend, he asked, how is it that you are without wedding clothes? But the man had no reply. Then the king said to his aides, bind his hands and feet and throw him into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of the teeth. Verse 14. For many are called, but few are chosen. For many are called, but few are chosen. Now, as you heard that parable being read, I want you to think about your life just like I had to think about my life. The Lord calls us all. He sends out the invitation to receive him and to live for him. But have you chosen to take that invitation? I want you to think about it now. The invitation has been sent out, but have you chosen to receive that invitation? And the problem is why it says few are chosen, because guess what? Everybody doesn't choose to receive the invitation of Christ into their lives. And sometimes the dangerous thing is thinking that you have time to choose Christ and to live for Christ. See, just like earlier in the passage, What was they doing? They made up all type of excuses why, I can't go. I got to do this. I got to do that. And it just goes back about our lives. You know, we can make up excuses. The reason why we haven't yet received Christ, or the reason we aren't truly living for Christ. Because you know the dangerous thing is, because everybody thinks they got tomorrow. Everybody thinks they got next week. See, some of us right now know we living in willful sin. Some of us know very well right now God been dealing with us and we living in outright willful sin. But you know what we think? I got tomorrow. Everybody thinks I got time. I got time. So that's the reason why we keep pushing things aside thinking I got time. Somebody right now hasn't received Jesus Christ into their life because you know what they think? I got time. Somebody hasn't repented of their sins and turned back to the Lord. You know why? Because they think they got time. The invitation has been sent out. Have you received your invitation yet? It's been sent. See, the Lord has no respect of person. All God do is sends out the invitation, and he gives us every opportunity to make that decision, because we must remember now, the Lord gives us free will. He doesn't make us do anything that we don't want to do. But the reality is, guess what? It's consequences for the choices that we make. It's consequences for the choices that we make. If you decide on today that you never want to receive Jesus Christ and you never want to live for Christ, that's your choice. But it's consequences to everything that we do. And we must think about that and realize that it's very real, very real. See, when it talks about in the word of God, it talks about how it's a narrow way and it's a broad way. See, I want you to even think about that. When it talks about it's a narrow way and only few choose to go that way. But the broad way to hell, many people choose to go that way. See, I want you to think about it. Many choose to go that way. That's the broad way, and you can live any kind of way. But only few people choose to live the right way. That's why it's only a limited edition who gonna get to go the right way. And the right way is heaven's way. I want you to think about it on today and ask yourself, the call has been made. Are you ready to receive the call? Are you ready to accept the invitation? I want you to think about it, because one thing that I know is when everybody die, many people want to go to heaven, but guess what? Everybody doesn't want to live the righteous life to get to heaven. Many people want to go to heaven, but only a few people are making it into heaven, because only a few people are going to live the righteous life on earth in order to get to heaven. So on today, I want you to think about your life and think about it to the point where, do you need to receive the invitation? Do you need to receive Christ? And do you need to start living a life that's truly pleasing to Christ? Think about it on today. Go to the Lord and submit yourself to the Lord so you can start living a life that's pleasing to the Lord. So always remember my closing. Self-examination is the best examination, and Jesus Christ is Lord, and he's all we have. Have a great rest of the day.